Hi, I'm Doug McGhee, and I'm a results leader.
You're listening to ResultsLeader.fm. Being a thought leader is easy. Getting results is hard. This show is for the results leader who lives and dies by their results. Here is your host and Chief Results Leader, Jonathan Rivera.
Welcome back to another edition of Results Leader.fm, and I've got a treat for you, specifically for you guys out there who want to love, learn, live, and lead. Today's guest, Mr. Doug McGhee, will help you. Let's jump into the interview. Doug, welcome to the show, my man. Good to have you here. How are you?
Hey, well, thank you first of all for having me, and I am doing amazing. I just returned from the isolated wilderness in Wyoming, northern Wyoming in the Bighorn Mountains. So how could you not be good after that experience?
Man, that sounds amazing. That sounds terrific. But we are here. We're not in isolation anymore, and it's sharing time, Doug. So, what book or books have you given most as a gift?
One of my first coaches wrote a book called Reinventing Yourself. And it is a profound book that uses humor and simplicity to help others understand the difference between being an owner and being a victim.
Being an owner and being a victim. You got to tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, in my world, most of our thinking is a product of our life experience. And the language of victim is a taught language, no different than learning Spanish or English. And so there's a victim language. And then guess what? There's this other side, which is the spirit of ownership. And there's an ownership language. Victim language, unfortunately, is very prevalent in our culture. And so the book's about helping reinvent your language to move from a victim point of view to owning your life.
Powerful, powerful. And the book is called Reinventing Yourself, right?
Reinventing Yourself by Stephen Chandler.
Oh, man, is now on my list. So let's talk about failure. And I'd like to hear a story of how an apparent failure set you up for later success.
Oh, how deep do you want this to go?
You share what feels right to you.
All right, I'm going for it. So I'll give you the high level version that will still have value. I was raised by a single mother, youngest of four children. My father was out of my life when I was 3 years old. And although there was an attempt to reconnect when I was about six, the same behaviors that had my mom remove us from that environment showed back up, and that was alcohol and some verbal abuse, and it just wasn't a healthy relationship. So for 31 years, I had no communication with my biological father. And I had to prove a lot in my life. Not knowing what I was trying to prove was relevancy and validation through sports and athletics and academics until I started doing deeper work. And so the failure that I saw was not having a father. You know, Jonathan, in this world, there are an abundance of fatherless families. It's one of the critical components to what I call fatherhood. And I was deep in a fatherhood until I wasn't. And so why I believe so strongly about the work that I do is that that was an opportunity for me to heal. And at 38 years old, it started bubbling up where I couldn't avoid it anymore. We didn't have conversations about who this guy was, but I knew that he was either alive or dead. And if he continued the lifestyle that he had lived, he probably was not alive, but I needed to know. So I found him and I called him one Sunday morning. And at that point, it had been 31 years since I had ever talked to him, and I didn't even remember that much, obviously. He answered the phone and said hello. And I said, "Is this Jesse Thompson?" And he said, "Yes, son, this is your father. I've been praying for this day for over 30 years.
Wow.
And that was a week after my 38th birthday. And the next words out of his mouth were happy birthday. And the failure of not having that father has moved me in a trajectory of doing work with men, deep work with men.
There's that phrase again, and I wrote it down here, and I'm curious if you could tell us what it means when you say deep work.
Yeah. So, I have a belief and a point of view that most of us in our thinking, in our life experience, have some level of trauma. It's traumatic to grow up without a father. Now, most men admit that. No, they just buck up and say, that's the way it is. And that's the way it's going to be. And I'm tough and rough and I'm going to handle it. But in the quiet of their night, when they put their head on the pillow, it's there. So accessing that requires a depth and an openness. And so that's what I mean by deep work. It's like lift up the hood and get behind the veil.
Doug, what would you say is the most worthwhile investment you've ever made?
In myself.
How do you mean?
Coaching, leadership development, personal development, financial investment, investment of time, investment of attention, investment in well-being through physical exercise. There's no doubt that that is the most essential investment that I've ever made in anything.
Where did it start? Because you listed off a bunch of different things there, the different investments you've made in yourself. What was the starting point for these investments into yourself?
Great question. So, my first answer, what I thought was going to be like college, right? But I think that's part of it. But I think it began before that. I think the first investment, and it wasn't a financial investment, it was an investment of time, was just recognizing pretty young in my life that this game between mind, like I used to say very young, it's all mind over matter, Mom. So the investment in my ability to direct my attention through mindfulness and meditation, I think was probably the earliest investment I made in myself.
How'd you find meditation? Because that it sounds like you found that early on.
It found me. It always does. I grew up in Colorado, and at that point, nature is it's still everywhere here, and it is everywhere, right? But the mountains always have called to me. So hiking, that connection with nature in a quiet space through hiking or mountain biking or fishing, or the edges of the stresses tend to just fall off. And so meditation can mean sitting in a space and, doing a normal meditation, but it can also mean just being connected. So the gap between your thoughts have a greater distance.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing you saying is it's more of the mindfulness and being present because when you're in nature, when you're hiking, when you're out there, you have to be fully there to enjoy it. Am I on the right track? Because my happy place, by the way, we haven't talked about this, is on the mountains of Colorado with a snowboard strapped to my feet going down the mountain.
Yeah, maybe 8 inches of powder and everything just kind of disappears, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's it. It's the senses are heightened, and the automatic dialogue that typically happens when you're plugged into the quote unquote matrix just tend to slow down. And I get to be with myself. You get to be with yourself. And some people are afraid of that, but I love it.
Yeah.
Because I do love myself.
That's a whole other interview. But let's talk about the last 5 years. What new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
You got some great questions. So, what belief, behavior, or habit? So, the biggest impact on my life is a ritual where it's a behavior formed by a belief that's created a habit. How's that? So, the behavior is a ritual every morning where I invest in myself physically, spiritually, in my relationships, and in my profession. And so those four realms, when attention is consistently applied in those, produce a result that creates capacity for me to see and also power for me to produce. And I think that behavior that's created a habit is probably one of the most important things I've integrated in the last 5 years, but consistent every single day.
Talk to us a little bit about that. What is the ritual? What does that investment look like in the morning, you said, right?
In the physical realm, it looks like some form of exercise. It also looks like some nutritional upgrade, like green smoothies, for example, right? So exercise and green smoothies. In the spiritual realm, it's some level of meditation and mindfulness or contemplative prayer and journaling. In the relationship realm, it is pouring into my partner, which is my wife, and her love languages, and investing in posterity, which is either children or extended family or other friends. And then professionally, it is learning something new about my business and then sharing that with other people so that the learning gets integrated. Because when you teach someone else, you learn it at a different level. You do that every day.
Every day. And I'm with you, by the way. I call it mornings are for family, but I'm part of my family. So I pour into myself before they wake up. And I'm 100% with you.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. You are the connection to your family, the relationship. So good.
Indeed, man. Let's have a little bit of fun. What are some bad recommendations you hear in your area of expertise?
Advice. Giving advice.
All right. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, so everyone has their wisdom and they have the answers. So in coaching, you know how many coaches give advice from their short window of experience that they think is the way to bliss? How could it be? How could my experience in my life be the advice for you, Jonathan? There may be some similarities, there may be some framework, but advice givers, that's, I think, in the world of coaching, is the worst way to coach.
All right.
They don't know who they are. They're taking advice from 6 different sources and they can't even access their own truth. Coaches are great when they open up a container and reflect back in a mirrored way so that the people can find their own answer. That's what coaching's about.
Am I hearing you correctly? Are you saying that coaching is about asking better questions?
And listening and then reflecting that back to your client.
Nobody's going to believe you. I'm with you, though. I'm with you. And here's a thing that happens with my team all the time is our clients come to us with a problem and our team's always trying to solve it. And I'm like, did you ask any questions? Like, do we even understand the problem? What do they really mean by that? And it annoys the hell out of my team, but I'm going to keep asking questions to help you find the answer. But you have the answer.
Exactly, because then they're reliant on someone to always solve their problems if they don't know they have the access to source their own answer.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program for a public service announcement. We're going to get right back into this show, but I wanted to ask you a question. If you have been listening to the show for any amount of time and you've picked up even one single tip, then I need your help. Get the word out. Tell people about resultsleader.fm. Share it on social media. Share it on your email. Share it anywhere. #ResultsLeaderFM. Now let's jump back into the interview.
Now let's talk about what the show is really about. Let's talk about results, Doug. Why do results matter?
Why does fruit on a fruit tree matter?
It's nourishing.
It's nourishing. It's a product of the environment that produced the fruit. It's actually the result of the work. So why do results matter? Results matter because without results, you have no measurement of the work that you've done. Without me having a result, then I'd stay in the world of make-believe and some level of cognitive understanding, but never apply that work so that the results are produced. And that's a challenge, again, with our culture. And we talked about this a little bit, is that people are all about giving advice and talking as if they've read a book and know it, but they don't apply it and integrate it into the world. So guess what? There's no fruit. They don't have any skin in the game. And without skin in the game, you're not going to produce results. It won't happen. results in all areas, physical, spiritual, relational, professional. It's all there. You've got to have the courage to do the work and to put yourself on the line to get results. Otherwise, you're living separate from it. You're watching the game from the audience, from the bleachers, instead of being on the field. That's the difference.
I'm going to give you credit. And if you guys didn't notice it, rewind back to when I asked the question and he tried to ask me a question. He's living it. He's living what he's saying. I love that, Doug, man. So in the last 5 years, what new realization has helped you get better results for your clients?
The last 5 years, a realization that's helped me that everyone has their own way, and to honor that and have reverence for their journey and to help them with their journey. And it's not about me. It's about them.
What area of your business would you like better results?
Greater impact either through deeper work or connecting with a greater number of men who want to do the work.
Do men want to do the work? Are there more men now that want to do the work, or are men fading out? Because I have this weird thing where I think men are ashamed to be men these days because of the society we live in. And maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm not. But I mean, are people coming out and wanting to get better, fix themselves, be more manly?
I think you're on to something. There's a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame for a lot of men. And it's being conditioned. So we're definitely working against the grain. And my experience, Jonathan, is 20% of the men are willing to do some work, and then 20% of those are willing to do really deep work. So it's a small demographic. This is my work. So I ride my bike 110 miles in Leadville, Colorado. It takes me 9 hours to do a mountain bike race. So I have tremendous endurance. And I can wait for the people. If we just keep doing our work and creating an opportunity for others to step into it when they're ready and challenging that, we're going to get there. And so I believe that it is possible. And if I didn't, I'd be a hypocrite.
You'd be out of a job. But yeah, I'm with you, man. It's like, I don't want to get too deep into this, but I think that we have to talk about this on a separate show. But I think that there's something to it. And I agree with you, is like, you have to keep being true to yourself, being intentional, being that beacon of light. And when the people are ready, they will come, just the same way that you have to help people find their own answers with the right questions. So what results are you most proud of?
Oh, wow. Great question. Not the ones that you would think, just to give you a kind of a dichotomy here. Like, I ran a mortgage company and owned a mortgage company and was an executive in a mortgage company. And I'm not really proud of those results, but society would tell you that you should be, right? What I'm proud of is reinventing myself at the age of 50 and doing my life's work and having the courage to step out of, quote unquote, a successful career to do the work that I feel that I am here to do and to serve a greater number of people. And so that is what I'm most proud of. And the rewards are totally different, and they feel different, they appear different, and the experience of those rewards, no one can take away from me. They're like in my cells.
As we're coming towards the end of the interview, any parting thoughts you want to share with the results leaders who are listening to us right now?
Yeah, and this is my experience of, like, let's not take ourselves so seriously. Let's have fun in this work. And when I say the work, it's like the courage just to have a ritual where we all do some self-inquiry and get honest with ourselves, and do it in a community where when we get out of alignment, there's someone to poke you and say, hey, Doug, you're off track a little bit here. And let's figure out our value system. And think our values can be looked at. Not that they're right or wrong and they're good or bad. There's just, I heard this in a talk one time. When you look at your credit card bill at the end of the month and look at the charges, it's a pretty good way to understand what your values are. That's what you spend your money on. love more, have more fun, serve others. And if you can do that, we're all going to be good.
I'm digging it, man. I know that our listeners are going to dig it as well. Where can they get more from you?
I've got an interesting URL, which is all part of the irony of setting up a company 3 years ago, but it's realm, REALM.men. And .men is the URL. It's not .com, it is .men. And that was there. So they can find everything they need to know about that and us and me on that, and they connect with me from there. So
excellent. So we will be sure to share links on the show notes as well. Of course, realm.men is where you go to get more from Doug. Thank you for taking some time to be with us today. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to another Results Leader.fm. We will be back in your earbuds next time. That is a wrap for another edition of Results Leader.fm. If you are out there getting results for your clients and you want to be featured on the show, go to resultsleader.fm now and apply to be on the show. And if you love what you're hearing, share the show, give us a rating and review, do anything to help us get the message out there. Thought leadership is easy, but results leadership is hard. We'll catch you on the next one.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.